I'm Bob Watson, Assistant Professor of Technical Communication in the Mercer School of Engineering. I want to thank you for allowing me to present this paper remotely because SIGDOC's always been one of my favorite conferences. Unfortunately, I can't make it to Milwaukee this year to present my paper in person because I'm currently in Honduras working with my Honduran collaborators on the project I describe in the paper. I invite you to read the paper, of course. However, what I want to present today are some of the more interesting aspects of the project that weren't able to make it into the paper. So the first question is, what's a piClinic console? Well, the piClinic console is a low-cost, self-contained patient information management system that's designed to help limited resource clinics manage their patient information and reporting. Why is such a thing needed? Well, I'll tell you a story about how I came up with the research question for this project, which is, can a low-cost computer automate the essential patient record information functions of a small clinic? And so the stories behind this project began a little over 4 years ago when my wife and I traveled to eastern Honduras to join a medical brigade. Our team of medical, dental, and pharmacy personnel staffed a small clinic for a little over a week, and my job was to be, for lack of a simpler description, the IT guy for the team. To understand why a medical team needed an IT guy, and not just any IT guy, but an IT guy with a ham radio, you have to understand that where we were and where we were going, there was practically no technology infrastructure. Water came from a hand-pumped well. Electricity came from a small diesel generator. Communications came through the ham radio I brought. And transportation to and from civilization was provided by our bush pilot / missionary who lived near the clinic. Our clinic was a primary care facility, so the more serious cases we encountered were taken to the nearest hospital in the missionary's airplane. My role was to provide the communications used to consult with and coordinate the transfer of patients to the hospital when the need arose. Fortunately, such a need was infrequent, so I had plenty of time to help run the clinic, but not being able to perform any particular medical task, my help was limited to clerical work and serving as a translator in a pinch. It was while serving in these clerical roles that I saw the need for what would become the piClinic console. In this clinic, and as I would find out after the trip, in many other clinics around Honduras, patient visits were recorded entirely on paper. The benefit to this, to the clinics, is that recording information about patient visits on paper doesn't require any technology beyond pencil and a cardboard box, or a filing cabinet if you happen to have one. The disadvantage of this method is that the information on the forms is difficult to retrieve. As an example, our team saw about 100 patients a day. Our team leader spent about an hour or so at the end of each day tabulating basic statistics, such as patient demographics. Being the IT guy on the trip, I of course saw this as the perfect job for a computer. But I also saw this as a difficult environment for a computer. The heat, the humidity, intermittent, unfiltered power provided by the generator would quickly take their toll on a computer. Just during our short mission, we lost several pieces of equipment due to corrosion and wear that were the direct result of these hostile environmental conditions. After the trip, I did some research and found that this clinic was the rule more so than the exception in Honduras. In fact, not just Honduras, but in other lower middle income countries. I also found in 2014 there were no viable options to provide the automation that such a clinic would require at a price the clinic could afford. I talked to others who had also been on medical missions, and they too saw the benefits of patient record automation, and also recognized that there was no affordable system to provide it. Several years after my first trip to this clinic, a $35 computer called the Raspberry Pi 3 was released. This latest version was more powerful than its earlier versions, so I wondered if it could handle the patient records of a small clinic. With the help of a small research grant from the school, I bought a Raspberry Pi 3, and a student and I built and tested a prototype to find out if a Raspberry Pi-based system would actually work in this application. From this test, we found that yes, it could do the job, and yes, it could be built and tested by students. During the summer of 2017, I set about getting things together to work on the project during the coming academic year. I had two goals that I wanted to accomplish as I broke the project down into its component tasks. First, I wanted to provide the best possible system for the end users at a price that would not burden the target clinics. And I wanted to provide as many learning experiences for my students as possible out of this project. Starting a project from scratch would invariably provide many learning experiences, the first being to define what, quote, the best system looked like to the end users, because they hadn't had experience with a patient record automation system. But I went back to Honduras in May of 2017, and this time I was there to find what the clinic staff really needed through a contextual inquiry, rather than what I thought they needed from my earlier casual observations. After observing operations in 5 different clinics and interviewing people directly and indirectly involved with the patient records, I came away with some new requirements. Some profound, others seemingly trivial, but that could still be critical. In the profound column, I learned from the people directly involved with the patient records that record storage wasn't as much of a concern for them as reporting on the patient data was. Through this contextual inquiry, I learned that each month, every clinic must submit reports to the Ministry of Health that describe various aspects of the patient seen by that clinic. This is an example of one of those reports. This particular report is filled in manually by tabulating on tally sheets data from the clinic's daily logs and entering the results in the 1,664 spaces on the form. Every doctor in the clinic must complete this report every month, and it's a process that takes on the order of 3 days. Automating this could be a tremendous time saver. At the interestingly trivial end of the spectrum was something I saw in the clinics with the intermittent electricity. I saw that during the clinic hours, pretty much every spare outlet has a phone or other rechargeable device connected to it. The electricity at this particular clinic was only available when the generator was running. So when people would come to work in the clinic, they took advantage of this availability of electricity to charge their phones and other devices. Charging the mobile phone was a high priority to the people who worked in the clinic. And it was a priority that could compete with other clinic equipment, as well as whatever system I thought of introducing into the clinic. The notion of the best solution was becoming clear. Now to start building it and naming it. We settled on piClinic Console, or just the console for short. Development progressed throughout the 2017-2018 academic year, during which a senior in our TechCom program was our project's usability researcher. As we iterated through system and user interface designs, he would iterate on his user testing approach to conduct tests in a way that would best inform our next revision. Dividing the tasks and research questions up helps share the development and testing across different courses and different countries. In addition to the students in charge of the usability testing, a TechCom student in our web design class drafted some UI mockups that inspired the final design. Engineering students in a computer engineering class performed a competitive analysis of other open source software that's available for clinics. Some other engineering students in a computer systems class developed some of the required functions for the console itself. And a couple of our multimedia students prepared a promotional video for the project's webpage. Throughout this process, I was working with a professor at the School of Public Health in the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Honduras in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. This collaboration has provided a much-needed Honduran perspective to the project and allowed access to inside their public health system. In March of this year, I visited the School of Public Health at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Honduras for the first time after a few months of Skype conversations with them. During this meeting, I met the 2 graduate students who would also be working on the Honduran side of the project, and we planned out the project's next steps. There's no shortage of clinics that could benefit from the piClinic console here in Honduras. The Ministry of Health estimates about 1,500 such public clinics around the country, in addition to the many privately sponsored clinics. And so that brings us more or less to the present. Since that meeting, I received news that I've been awarded the Fulbright Scholars Grant to spend this summer and next summer in Honduras working on the project. So that's where I am as I present this. Much of the project's success to date has been the result of the support it's received from many places. My peers in our technical communication department, the undergraduate research organizations at my university, a few private organizations, some here in Honduras, the clinics and organizations that have provided access to the clinics and their staff, and the Fulbright Scholars Program that's provided the research funding for this summer and next. I can't thank them enough, but even with all that support, there were some challenges. The first one is the scope of the project. It's much bigger than it looked last summer, but I've gotten a lot of help, and so this has helped keep it manageable. I found out that my Spanish could be better, something I knew going into this, but I have to credit my very patient collaborators as my vocabulary continues to develop. The other thing is to appreciate how, for however excited I am about the project, it's not everyone's highest priority. But by helping make it as easy as possible for people to help, it's easy to enlist their help, and that's I have to credit a lot of success on the project to all the other people that have contributed. So in spite of these challenges, the project's on track to be field tested next summer, and we're looking forward to that. Next summer, in 2019, I'll return to install the consoles in the clinics we identify this summer to see how they integrate into the clinic's operations. The goal for next summer is to finally answer the research question I posed last summer. Can a low-cost computer automate the essential patient record functions of a small clinic? I believe it can. And thank you again for allowing me to present this paper remotely. Honduras is a beautiful country, and everyone we've met in our visits this time and other ones has been incredibly gracious and kind and extremely helpful. You can read more about the project in the paper, and you can follow the project's progress at piClinic.org, on my blog at docsbydesign.com, and on Twitter. Thank you.